Ta-ta! Whoa. Hi, everybody. How are you doing? Check it out. I got a Ben 10 hoodie. I got like an upgrade hoodie. I didn't even know I had this. All right, that's one of actually the best things about moving is that at the old place when I was living there, anything that I had, pretty much that I wasn't using in videos, I had to pack up into like containers and put them in the basement because we just didn't have room to keep that stuff out all the time. But now I'm going through all my stuff. I have a whole rack of clothing over there, like funny outfits and stuff that I've found over the years, and I got this the other day, and I'm just like, oh man, that's right, I did buy a Ben 10 upgrade hoodie because upgrade is like the coolest alien ever in Ben 10, so why not? It has nothing to do with the video we're talking about today. I mean, maybe it does, I don't know, but whatever, I just wanted to wear it. Alright, so today's video, you saw that title correctly. Yeah, we are going to be talking about Caesar Clown, the Caesar Clown. We're talking about pharmacist Cedar and gangster Gastino reappearing in this story, okay? Because the thing is, and I've joked about this before a few times ever since Caesar got his heart back and then he left Totland, and it was confirmed that he actually did make it out of Totland alive, because Oda could always spin that like, oh, all we did was see Caesar get his heart back and then leave the group. He was still in the middle of Whole Cake Island. Although I guess you can imagine, because everybody was really focused on the wedding cake and Big Mom trying to get to Cacao Island, and then all the other forces were trying to capture the Straw Hats and Beiji. I guess Caesar, with his ability, having a Logia able to fly, he could just turn himself into a hot air balloon and just float out of the country with minimal detection. Okay, so I guess that makes sense, but yeah, it was confirmed Caesar made it out, alright? Now, I really wanted the next cover series in One Piece after Beiji's Oh My Family to be The Marvelous Misadventures of Caesar Clown, and that's 100% what I wish it would have been named, too. Unfortunately, we don't have that. We instead have the Germa Double Six's, emotionless voyage on the sea, or whatever it's called, which I'm sure that'll be pretty interesting as well to see what the Germa have been up to. But, Caesar, whatever. Now, I guess you could take that to mean one of two things. You could think of it like, well, Caesar's not going to be relevant to the story anymore, just like a lot of characters in One Piece. They had their time in the spotlight, and then they left, or they stayed behind on an island, and we're just never really going to focus on them again. Or it could mean maybe Oda does have a plan for Caesar, he just didn't want to reveal it yet, and maybe he encountered another group. It could have been a pirate group, it could have been maybe the revolutionaries, it could have been even Vegapunk, who knows, right? Now, let's say one thing right out of the gate here. Caesar, whether you like his character or not, which, honestly speaking, Caesar is a horrible individual. Like, he experimented on kidnapped children. There's really no good way to take that, right? I was like, oh, wait, no. He was paid money to do it by Big Mom. Like, that makes it worse, all right? And actually, you know what? He used most of the money he got from Big Mom, and he just splurged on, like, booze and, like, hiring escorts from other islands to come to Punk Hazard while he still experimented on the kidnapped children, all right? So he's a horrible scumbag. Let's just be straight up about that. I also remember there was an SBS a little while ago when Nami was just being so cruel to Caesar during Totland, and the SBS question was basically like, why is Nami being so mean to Caesar? What did he ever do? And Oda's response to the person that asked that question was basically just like, go back and read Punk Hazard. Like, you might not be completely familiar with this story. Maybe you forgot the horrible things that Caesar did, but yeah, he did a lot of messed up things during that arc. And Nami in particular is not going to forgive somebody that, once again, I feel like this needs to be repeated, experimented on kidnapped children. She's not going to forgive that lightly, probably ever, okay? So yeah, Caesar's a bad person, but you have to understand, like, okay, he's a Logia user, and he's a brilliant scientist. I mean, the whole science thing, that wasn't just for a gag. That wasn't like, oh, Caesar Clown is some kind of crazy scientist, but in reality, he's just a goofball that really doesn't know how to do science. No, he's a seriously good scientist, okay? Not only that, but it was actually stated by, I believe, Smoker, like a few characters, that Caesar Clown when he worked together with Vegapunk in Mads, because considering that Judge and Queen and Vegapunk were all in this Mads organization, you can throw Caesar Clown in there as well. Caesar's a little younger than all of them, though. We know Judge is 55 years old, so I like to think Queen is around that same age, like Queen and Judge were rivals. And then you have Vegapunk, which I feel is like he's a lot older, if not maybe hundreds of years old. Vegapunk could be some kind of immortal cyborg for all we know. It's just Vegapunk, who knows, right? But Caesar right now is only 40 years old, okay? So if you just dial back the clock 30 years, when Judge and Queen were like in their 20s, and Vegapunk might have been, we don't know how old Vegapunk is, but Vegapunk would have been the head, scientist back then. Caesar was only 10. So it's possible that, like, Caesar was, like, the assistant. Like, he was the one that, like, hey, look, Vegapunk, I did science, it's just, like, little test tubes, It's like Judge and Vegapunk and Queen are over there cracking the human genome of the One Piece world and cracking what is, like, DNA and the lineage factor. Meanwhile, Caesar's off to the side just, like, bringing them coffee and donuts, and he's just trying to help out as much as he can. But it was stated that eventually Caesar became Vegapunk's, like, assistant, and then his research partner. So I think what happened there with Mads, and I made a video about this involving Mads, so maybe go check that out for more detail there. But when Mads was busted by the world government, it seems Queen and Judge both managed to get away. Now, whether that be because, like, maybe part of the deal Vegapunk worked out with the government was like, hey, let my research partners go, and then I'll go with you and work for the world government with my magical science capabilities, right? Not magical, it's science, mad science even, right? And so maybe Queen and Judge got away that way, or maybe they just, like, they scrambled, they managed to get out fast enough so the world government couldn't catch them, or the world government was only focused on, Vegapunk. And Caesar might have gotten captured as well at the same time, so it was the only members of Mads that remained were Vegapunk and Caesar. There were probably some other members as well, we just don't know who they are, right? And so Vegapunk went to go work for the world government at Punk Hazard. Punk Hazard might have very well have been built for the sole purpose of being Vegapunk's research laboratory. And so to get back to my original point, which I went on a little tangent there, is that Smoker stated that Caesar, all of his scientific inventions and his prowess, it always came up second best to Vegapunk, okay? And so because of that, Caesar always felt very jealous, like he wasn't good enough and everything, and so that's kind of what led Caesar down the line that he went, working more for, like, Doflamingo and Kaido, developing the smiles. It was always trying to, like, one-up Vegapunk in a way, especially since Vegapunk was working on artificial devil fruits, and he kind of scrapped that project, or Caesar basically, I guess, decided to take, Vegapunk's notes and rework it, so he made the SAD, which led to the smiles, which lead to, the artificial zones that exist in the Beast Pirates right now, okay? I just want to say this. I don't know how much Smoker really knew about that, or if he was being literal, but if Caesar was coming up second best to Vegapunk, that's still quite an accomplishment. You know what I mean? Because, like, Vegapunk is stated time and time again to be this revolutionary scientist that's, like, 5 centuries above his contemporaries, like, churning out tech that is honestly just completely anachronistic, going along with the One Piece piratey theme of the world. Anachronistic. That's a word you don't get to use very often, but it's awesome when you do. It's the idea that it doesn't really fit. You have a pirate adventure, sailing the 7 seas, matey, with the cutlass and the flintlocks, and then all of a sudden, avast ye off the mizzenmast! We have a group of cyborgs, matey! Yarg! It doesn't make any sense. It's like going to Robot Pirate Island, which very rarely ever comes up in the One Piece world, but I guess there is a Robot Pirate Island somewhere out there, right? So that's the level Vegapunk is at, making laser technology and cyborgs and all this crazy stuff, right? And then if Caesar's going to be ranked number 2 behind Vegapunk, that's actually pretty good. Now, I think maybe Smoker wasn't being 100% literal there. He was just trying to explain to his men of G5 at the time who Caesar Clown was and how he ended up with a bounty of 300 million, why the government wants him, why he did the things that he ended up doing, why did he become a criminal. And it's because he was jealous that he was never as good as Vegapunk. He was always second best. I think that's what Smoker was trying to get across, not like literal literally, like, the smartest scientist in the entire One Piece world is Vegapunk. I think that can pretty much be, confirmed at this point. And the second best scientist in all of One Piece is Caesar Clown. I don't think that was the case, especially since we have Judge and Queen right now in the midst. But I would say Caesar definitely ranks up there. His technology involving gas weaponry is pretty on point. I mean, he makes gas weapons that kill populations, and I originally said that his gas weapons weren't that good because he made that kill gas. Like, it was literally just called the kill gas that was released by Jack at Zoe. And I said that weapon sucked because, like, it caused the Minks to not die right away. It took them, like, 48 hours to die. And so that gave the Straw Hats enough time to save them, and then for Caesar to create the anti-gas, so to speak, that would cure them, the Koro gas. Because I think it's Koro was the name of the death gas, and then it's Roko was the name of the anti-gas that, like, cured them, right? But that wasn't actually the point of that gas. The point of that gas weapon that Caesar was attempting to create was to cause as much suffering and torment as possible before it kills you. If Caesar wanted to, he could just make a gas that would probably kill you right away, like plenty of gases exist in our world that do that. But no, he went the extra mile in being a scumbag by, like, no, they have to suffer to the maximum possible degree before they quite literally have the life choked out of them. That's what I want my gas weapon to have, and then he's the guy on the black market that makes all this stuff, so Kaido and Doflamingo, they didn't really have a lot of options, when buying a gas weapon, so they purchased it from Caesar, and it's like, all right, this is all we have. It takes 48 hours to kill them, but it's all we have to work with, so let's do it, right? Because there's probably not a lot of other brilliant scientists / chemists that are in the underworld to sell these weapons to begin with, right? So that's what Caesar was there for. Even the Shinokuni, the country of death, the idea of, like, turning that petrification gas as a super weapon and selling it to the highest bidder. Even that stuff is really not all that effective when you honestly think about it. It covers a wide area, sure, but the people that it petrifies don't even die right away. You can break them out of their petrification shell and they're just fine. That might also have something to do with the idea of Oda not wanting to kill a lot of characters. But, oh, hey, here's something. Caesar is actually one of the very few characters in One Piece to kill another prominent character straight up in the present storyline, not involving flashbacks or anything like that, because people die all the time in flashbacks in One Piece. Named characters that actually have a point in the plot dying in the present storyline, that's a rarity, and Caesar was one that actually killed Monet. Which sucks, because Monet was like a really sexy harpy lady, but whatever. Okay, he stabbed her heart thinking that it was Law's heart or Smoker's heart, one of the two. He didn't think it was Monet's, and then Monet ended up dying, okay? So, I guess, honestly, that gives Caesar a higher kill count in this series than most characters. Most characters that are not, like, random background characters or whatever. Like, remember that time Luffy was charging through level 4 of Impel Down and he was just kicking the guards over the railings into giant pots of boiling blood and fire? Yeah, those guards definitely died. Luffy has killed a lot of people, but they were background characters, so it doesn't matter as much, right? Monet mattered, okay? Anyway, that's my point, though. At the end of this long tangent here, Caesar has a Logia. It's a gas Logia, which is the absolute perfect Logia for him to have, and he's a brilliant chemist, okay? So you could very easily reincorporate him into the story, and it would make perfect sense. So one example I had is, like, let's say Caesar is just out, like, he thinks he's done with the world, right? He's like, okay, I tried working with Vegapunk, and that didn't work out, and then I was working for Doflamingo and Kaido and also doing some side projects for Big Mom, and that didn't work out. Then I was kidnapped by the Straw Hats, and that definitely didn't work out. Then I was kidnapped by the Fire Tank Pirates, and that really, really didn't work out. You can imagine after the events of Tauntland, Caesar's like, I am done with this shit. I am out of here. I am gonna go. Now, I'm using the bakery example again, but this is the one that I think makes the most sense, okay? Out of all the characters so far in One Piece, you can kind of look at Caesar as being the one character that's like, I screwed with a lot of really powerful people in this story. Yonko, 2 of them, in fact, plus a warlord, Doflamingo. And I was messing around with the Straw Hats and the Fire Tank crew and the Marines as well. He somehow managed to get out scot-free. So unless Caesar is the biggest glutton for punishment in all of One Piece, the smartest thing, the only decision that would be logical for him at this point would be to go start a bakery. Because honestly, that he would be done. He would be done with it, okay? He's like, I'm never going to make any more gas weapons. He takes all of his chemistry stuff and throws it in the garbage. And just like, I'm not doing it anymore. Screw it. I'm just going to sit here and bake muffins and live out the rest of my days. That would be the smart thing to do, okay? But if the fates have it another way, here's something I threw out there. You know which characters I would actually really love to see interact? And it's so obvious when you actually think about it. I'll actually give you a moment or two to think about it. Which character in One Piece do you think Caesar Clown would have the best, like, companionship with? You know, like, basically like a duo, so to speak, that they can, like, play off each other and stuff like that. I'll give you a few seconds. It's not that hard. Okay, you got it? Okay, yeah, it's Buggy. It's Buggy, right? Like, holy shit! Buggy the Clown, I'm sorry, Buggy D Clown and Caesar Clown. It's so obvious. I feel like somebody has probably talked about it before. It's like, maybe Buggy and Caesar will team up. Probably somebody has mentioned it before, but I just realized that. And I'm like, okay, right now, Buggy is actually in the need of some assistance because the warlord system has been abolished and he can't use Kalibali Island as his home base anymore. Probably the majority of the Buggy's delivery service are going to be staying behind at Kalibali, distracting the Marines. The core members like, you know, Buggy, Alvida, Galdino, Mr. 3, Kabaji, Moji, Richie, they're going to probably manage to escape the island. But where are they going to go? What are they going to do? I threw out the idea of Shanks because Shanks is like one of Buggy's like old, Roger pirate buddies and stuff. But Buggy really does not like Shanks. So, I mean, like, he might go to Shanks, like, very begrudgingly, but only as a last resort. It would be so funny if, as Caesar, you know, he's in a hot air balloon mode, he's, like, traveling the seas of the Grand Line, just trying to get out of the New World. Like, he's just, I'm done with everything. I'm just going to turn into a hot air balloon. I'm going to float to the South Blue or the West Blue or the North Blue, any blue I find myself in, and I'm just going to get out of Dodge, right? And then as Buggy is escaping the Marines, he runs into Caesar, and they form a friendship, much in the same way that, like, Buggy and Mr. 3 formed that friendship in Impel Down, which is such a weird combo, but it ended up working. They're a very good comedy duo. But I can imagine Buggy and Caesar being an even funnier comedy duo. And the thing is, Buggy and Caesar, like, okay, Caesar's intelligent, but he's not that smart, okay? In D&D terms, he has a very high intelligence stat, but his wisdom's really not that high up there, okay? So, and Buggy, I can imagine, like, Buggy feeling so down on his luck after being kicked out of the warlords and being chased after by Marines. Buggy might have that same kind of idea too, like, let me get out of here alive and I'll never be a pirate again, or I'm gonna hang up my pirate hat and my clown nose, right? And then Caesar's like, I want to get out of here too. But if those two actually met each other and they got to talking, they could probably talk each other into some crazy convoluted plan that would probably not work at the end of the day and probably come back to bite them in the ass even more. But those two characters interacting with each other, they could definitely make that think that, like, that's a smart idea. You know, it's like, holy crap, you have a Logia. Oh, shoo-do-do-do-do-do. Yes, it's the gas fruit. I can turn into gas. I'm also a chemist. I used to make gas weapons, but I don't know. That wasn't really working out for me, so I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. What's your deal? Oh, well, I'm Buggy the Clown. I used to be on Roger's crew. Shoo-do-do-do-do-do. No kidding. You were on Roger's crew. I'm like, yeah, I also have the power of the Barabara know me. It's like, I would say that if we worked together, we might possibly be able to take over the world. And Buggy's like, yeah, but, you know, like, we tried that a few times and it didn't work. And honestly, it seems like the universe is telling us to give up on our respective professions, right? And Buggy and Caesar will be like, yeah, But, you know, if they talked about it long enough, they would probably talk themselves into it, and they'd be like, yeah, we can take over the world, let's do this! And then they're like best friends or whatever. I could totally see that, and I think that could also fall in line with Oda's comedy, right? Like, 1 minute both characters are like done, and then after like one conversation, they're dancing together on the Big Top's deck, and like, we're gonna take over the world, we're gonna find the One Piece, you know? Caesar and Buggy working together, best pals, you know, something like that. I could see that happening, right? And even if you don't want to get Buggy involved in this, I think it would be the funniest option, but if you don't want to get Buggy involved in this, there are still plenty of groups in this story that would really want Caesar Clown. Like, for example, I don't know, maybe Blackbeard, because Blackbeard, not only because he's hunting for very strong devil fruits and Caesar has a Logia, not even going to that level, if Blackbeard actually met Caesar, even if he didn't know everything about him, I'm sure at least somebody on his crew probably at least have heard of Caesar. Somebody know, like Shiryu. Shiryu used to work for Impel Down, which used to be a branch of the Marines, kind of. Shiryu would probably at least know about Caesar's existence, right? Okay. Somebody on the crew probably does. You know, I mean, Blackbeard might think about just killing him and taking his gas Logia, but that wouldn't be the smartest thing to do because this is literally a master chemist that has the gas fruit. Caesar can synthesize gases just through his own body, right? So it would be the smarter thing to actually recruit him. All right? That would be like something insane. Like now, the 10th Titanic captain is probably already decided upon. It's just we don't know who the 10th captain is. But he wouldn't be a captain. He would just be like the Blackbeard Pirates, like scientific officer or something like that. You know, in charge of chemicals, whatever title you want to give him. That would be something that, like, if Blackbeard approached Caesar and Caesar was given this offer and he'd be like, man, that's not a really smart thing for me to do, considering that I worked for Kaido and almost got killed, worked for Big Mom and almost got killed, barely managed to get away in both scenarios. Now Blackbeard, another member of the Yonko, is trying to get me to work for him. I should leave, but then Blackbeard's like, Zeha! We'll give you all the treasure and booze, and, you know, there's some fine ladies here on Hachinosu, and then Caesar's kind of a sucker for that, so he'd be like, oh, no. Okay. Honestly, as long as Blackbeard gave him, like, the barest semblance of respect and, like, dignity, like, you know, he didn't treat him the way that the Straw Hats treated Caesar, or the way the Fire Tank Pirates treated Caesar, you know, as more of just like you know, basically a pawn in their game. If Blackbeard kind of gave him, like, you know, some kind of equal status, or at least told him that he would give him some kind of equal status, you know, something like that. Like, Zehaha, you join my crew and you're gonna stand up there with me and all my other captains, you know, something like that. Caesar would probably look at it. He would be gullible enough to go for it, I think. He would be like, yeah. And that would also help Blackbeard out quite a bit. And then at the final revelation of this story, you could reveal that Caesar, despite the idea of, like, Oda trying to maybe humanize him a little bit more throughout those arcs of, like, Zou and Totland, at the end of the day, Caesar is a villain. He has some quirky, you know, personality traits, but he's still a villain. Remember, he would not have helped the Minks out if it wasn't, like, Sanji and Chopper and Nami basically forcing him to help them. If they didn't have him chained up in Sea Prism and basically like, hey, you're going to help these Minks. You're going to make a gas to counteract that kill gas shit that was released here. Caesar would not have done that. Okay, so he was literally forced and coerced in every situation since Punk Hazard to do those things that actually helped people out, okay? But left to his own devices, he would not do those kind of things. And so the final part of this story might actually be, yeah, the Straw Hats going up against the Blackbeard Pirates, and it turns out, oh wait, Caesar's actually a member of them the whole time, and Caesar is really rightfully pissed at the Straw Hats for everything they put him through, and he's like, I was never a good person. I've always been a villain, and now I have Blackbeard backing me. We're going to fight, and it might be like a final battle to the end. Maybe Chopper would fight him, and that would make a lot of sense, given Chopper being a doctor and everything we've seen with Queen. We could actually see some, you know, connections there. Maybe Chopper could fight Caesar, and it's like, oh, this is actually kind of a crazy fight, because Luffy was the one to defeat Caesar at Punk Hazard. It was relatively easy for him, but here he is working for Blackbeard, and Blackbeard might develop some other kind of gas weapon or something like, Zeha! If you work for me, I have an idea to spread this even more more deadly gas weapon or something like that. So you could have an idea of like Chopper fighting Caesar and remembering Queen, and maybe like Caesar could talk about Queen a little bit and everything, and the end of that battle would be Chopper punching the shit out of Caesar, defeating him, and then walking away, and Chopper having a moment because, you know, more so than Nami, because Nami would never forgive Caesar after everything that he did. Chopper, though, is one of those characters I think a lot of times wants to see the good in these characters and wants to see them improve. So all those times he spent with Caesar, you know, on Zoe, working on the medicine and everything like that, maybe Chopper, maybe part of him was naive enough to think that, like, hey, maybe Caesar's going to change. Maybe he's not going to be this horrible person anymore. Maybe he was just a victim of circumstance. Maybe he's going to be a better person. And then here he is working for Blackbeard. Like, no, he never changed. He was always as scummy as he always was. So Chopper has to fight him and defeat him. But there's one final scene where, like, Chopper looks back at Caesar like, I thought you changed, man. I thought you could be a better person. You know, with your skills, with your abilities, you can make the world such a better place with your gas techniques and stuff. You can make chemicals and medicines that could heal people, that can improve the world. Instead, you keep doing this criminal shit. And, you know, Chopper could be like, you know, I had high hopes for you. I vouched for you, kind of. And you did this instead. Whatever. And then Chopper just leaves, and then Caesar's on the ground just defeated, and that's just his end in the story. I would actually probably prefer that. Like, there's really no big redemption moment or anything. It's just like, he had his chance, he could have left and just never gone back into the game again, but he decided to. That was on him. He's not a victim of circumstance. That's who he was from the beginning, right? And so that's the end of Caesar Clown's character. So, you know, all those ideas I threw out there, some of them more comedic than others, some of them more serious, but I don't think his story is over just now. I don't think it's just going to be it for Caesar. We're just never going to see him in the story again. I think he's going to pop up at least one more time. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. This will be Tekking and Barry. Oh yeah, I had this book. I was going to do a joke with Caesar, you know, like Julius Caesar, you know, Caesar and Buggy working together. There you go, right? Yeah, okay. Also, I was going to do a thing with JoJo's Part 2 with Caesar! I was going to do that too, but I never really had a chance to work it in. Yeah, but you know what I do have a chance to work in? Facts. So let's do it. All right. Today's elephant fact is going to be on the diets of elephants, because elephants, as you can imagine, pretty big animals. And as we stated, the African bush elephant is the largest land animal on the entire planet that's, you know, an extant species, right? So you imagine they have to eat a lot of food. So how much do they eat, and what exactly do they eat? Well, elephants are vegetarians. I'm assuming a lot of people already knew that, but that presents another problem, because you think, wow, they only eat vegetables and like plant life and stuff? How much of that stuff do they have to consume every single day? Well, I actually found a discrepancy in a lot of these numbers, and I think some of them are based off of like the age of the elephant, and of course like the African bush elephant is, I believe, a little bit larger than the African forest elephant, and I think it also depends on if the elephant is in, you know, a zoo or in like a preserve kind of thing, or if it's just a wild elephant. I saw some stats that were like 300 pounds of food a day, another one that was 200 to 600 pounds of food a day, 100 to 400 pounds of food a day. So I guess if you want to take that from a broad, like, you know, 100 all the way to 600 pounds per day spectrum kind of situation, that's what we're working with. But I'll say right in the middle, around probably 300 to 400 pounds a day is an average. They spend 12 to 18 hours a day eating. All right, and so you got time to sleep, and they pretty much spend the entire time they're awake, you know, eating or grazing, finding another place to move to eat food. And they mostly consume roots, grasses, fruits. So, you know, when you hear vegetables, you might think like they only eat vegetables or fruits. I'm like, man, that's a lot of apples right there. How many apples are 300 pounds? That's probably at least a bushel of apples, I'd say. A bushel and a half, maybe. But no, it doesn't have to be just vegetables and fruit. They can live off of branches, leaves. 50% of their diet is literally just leaves off of trees on like the African savanna. Obviously, the forest elephants would have more to work with here, not being in a savanna, being in a forest. But yeah. 50% is leaves, roots, grasses, barks. In zoos, they often eat a lot of hay. which probably replaces the leaves while they're in like captivity, and then just branches and stuff. And so you've probably seen how they eat. You know, they literally reach up with their trunk and like strip a branch of its leaves and just shove it into its mouth, or they can actually get up on their hind legs and like, eat that way. That's pretty cool. And they actually replicate that when they are in zoos. So an elephant that would be in a zoo, they're so used to using their trunk to reach up to eat their food. The people at the zoo will actually put like pumpkins and other kinds of fruit and vegetables and food inside of like baskets or like nets, and they'll hang them from like a crane or something in the elephant's preserve to like replicate how they eat in the wild, where you don't just set the food on the ground. They actually have to like pick it off of a tree. That's how they prefer to eat. And so there's actually some videos you can watch online of elephants just like zookeepers giving them just like whole pumpkins, like, here you go, and the elephant will just like, thank you, and then just shove a whole pumpkin. Hippos too, which maybe when we get to H we'll do hippo facts, but hippos are the same way, which is like a hippo will just open its giant maw and you just take a giant watermelon or a pumpkin or something, you just throw it in there, and the hippo will just boom, like the jaws of death, and just eat it and be like, thank you, that was good. So yeah, that's how they eat. Anyway, they also consume up to 50 gallons of water a day. 50 gallons, which is about the amount that can fit inside of a bathtub. So honestly, that doesn't seem like that much now that I think about it. That sounds like a big bathtub. I don't know if my bathtub could fit 50 gallons. Because I'm picturing my bathtub, like, and I don't have like a special bathtub or anything. It's just like a standard bathtub filled to the brim with water. For an elephant for an entire day, that doesn't seem like enough water. Also, walking around in the African savanna heat. Feels like it should be more than that, but whatever. That's the stat that I found, 50 gallons, right? Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video and this episode of Elephacts. Have a good one, everybody. Tekking Barry signing out. Upgrade!